I'm the president of Southern New Hampshire University, and it's just a delight to welcome you here on World Refugee Day to spend some time with this amazing group of graduates from our GEM program. As you probably know, and sadly, the world now suffers more than 80 million displaced people. And the conflict in the Ukraine has been just the latest in a multi-decade challenge. And in that number, we see far, far too few people with access to post-secondary or higher education. Just 3% of the world's displaced people have access to higher education. But as you will see today, among that 80 million people is amazing talent. And we can't afford as a globe, as a human species, to squander that talent, which has so much promise and is so much about the solution for the world's problems. So I am just delighted to have you meet these 5 remarkable graduates of our GEM program. So SNHU launched its GEM program in the Kiziba refugee camp some years ago in Rwanda. I remember visiting that camp and being struck by the need and the talent that was both apparent. And we were able to create that program, and we've now expanded to 5 countries, and we have over 2,000 graduates and currently 800 students. 5 of those graduates are with us today. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. And it's just if you could tell us, where you're from originally, when you graduated, what you studied, and what you're doing today. So just kind of the basics. Then we're going to go deep because we want to spend a lot more time with you. I don't want to squander a minute. So let's begin with Glory. Glory, Lucambo, you prefer Glory, so we're going to go with that today. Tell us a little bit about your background when you graduated.
Hi everyone, hi Paul. It's a pleasure to meet everyone here and all the people in the audience. So my name is Gloria Lucambo and I'm a refugee in Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya. I graduated as a student in the Associate of Arts at Southern New Hampshire University this year in 2022. And currently I'm pursuing my Bachelor's of Arts in Healthcare Management still at Southern New Hampshire University under the GEM program. So I co-founded an organization that has been really growing fast these few days or these few years. That's named Vigilant Treasure Club, where I work with a few other youths to increase food availability in Kakuma refugee camp. We do fish farming, we do duck farming, we do a lot of agriculture projects to increase food availability in our camp. Yeah, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to see all of you.
Thank you, Gloria. And Gloria, you're in Kakuma Camp, which
Exactly.
is
Yeah.
in the far northwest corner of Kenya, in a very arid place. It's, I think, the largest refugee camp in Africa, if I'm not mistaken. I visited, and it's a robust economy. And what I'm struck with, even when our students, even before they graduate, like Gloria, they are often studying and also part of this vibrant life. Sometimes we can think of refugee camps as a place where nothing's happening. In fact, everything is happening. So thank you, Gloria, for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you. And then let's go to Narjas. And you're going to speak very
Okay.
loudly because of our connections. And everyone, our connections are all over the world today. So Narjas, please.
Okay. Can you hear me clearly? Amazing. So my name is Al Narjas, and the simplest way to pronounce it is Narjas Harba. I'm basically from Syria. I lived in Lebanon for 8 years as a refugee, and I recently came to Turkey with SNHU's partners' help. I studied healthcare management at SNHU GEM program in Lebanon, and I graduated in 2020. At the end of 2020, getting my BA in 2 years, and this is my biggest achievement till now. And I'm currently about to finish my preparation year learning the Turkish language here in Turkey. Thank you.
That's wonderful. And Narjas, you neglected to mention you are our first Middle Eastern graduate of the GEM program. We started in Africa and moved to Lebanon. So we're very, very proud of you. Let's go to Julie.
Hi everyone, my name is Jolie Momanyi. I'm 23 years of age, originally from the DR Congo, but now reside in Cape Town, South Africa. Um, I am under the GEM program. I'm part of the GEM family, if I may say it like that. I'm doing my BA in healthcare management, and it's just wonderful. Thank you all for being here.
Wonderful. Thank you, Julie. Jackson?
Good morning, all, or good afternoon, depending to where you are. I'm Jackson Habimfura, originally from DRC, but I'm currently living here in Rwanda for 26 years. So I'm a graduate of Southern New Hampshire University, where I graduated in 2019 in management with the concentration in logistics and operations. And I'm currently working for SNHU as here based at the GEM Hub Rwanda, where I'm currently supporting the student as well as the staff in technical issue they face as a SNHU technological help desk. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then my old friend Agnes, well, not my old friend, my young friend Agnes, but I've known you for a while. Agnes, do you want to sort of introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Agnes Borume. I'm a proud Congolese. I'm living in Rwanda in Kiziba refugee camp, but currently living in Kigali. I graduated in 2019. I spent 1 year and something to graduate my BA. I'm just a proud graduate. I did my management with concentration in logistics and operation. Yeah. And I'm currently working as a GEM project manager. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Rachel Sears joins me on screen if you're watching, and Rachel heads up our GEM program. Has been with us for how long now, Rachel?
I have been with the GEM program for almost 5 years.
That's right, and is in South Africa in Cape Town, ready to celebrate yet another graduation. And these are the, whether it is in Kaziba or Kakuma or Cape Town or in Lebanon, the GEM graduations are perhaps the most joyous graduations one will ever experience. And in some part because of how far people have traveled. And I want to begin by asking, and I'll start with you, Agnes, to stay with you for a moment more. If you could just tell people, and I know it's this, I'm often the saddest part of the story, the saddest part of the journey, but how did you come to leave your country? What was, if you could just tell us succinctly, what was the situation that set you onto this journey away from your home?
Yeah, so I can't be accurate 100% because I was still very young, but I remember my parents told me that it was because of the conflict and the war in my country, and this caused them to felt here in Rwanda just for safety. In DRC Congo, there's a lot of insecurity and people are dying days to days, and they decided to come here in Rwanda to look for security. I mean, for a place where they will be living and know that, okay, tomorrow we might wake up in this home, not in a forest.
Yeah, and I think for Americans, we sometimes don't register fully just how long has been the conflict in the DRC and millions of people displaced for the most basic security, as you said. A very, very violent and dangerous place. Julie, why don't we go with you? Tell us just your home and how you came to become a refugee.
So the same with Agnes. I can't really tell with all accuracy because I left home at the age of 7. My father was an intern journalist at the time, and he wrote a news report, the truth about what was happening in the Congo, and he was in search of, he was wanted, and the only thing that we could do as a family was to run away. So we found ourselves in South Africa, and I've been here for the past 16 years, and I call South Africa home, even though it's not, just because the system doesn't allow me to make it feel home. But I am proud to be from Congo, even despite the situation.
Yeah. Jackson?
Yes. I can say it's the same way because in I was also even young the time we fled Congo. Yeah, it was in 1996. I was like 5, and there was insecurity in our places, where people used to come and loot our things. Sometimes they kill our family members, things like that. Then we found that there's no way we can stay in that place like that. So we took our way to here in Rwanda in 1960s, where we found the refuge. Starting from that time till to now is where I'm living.
Yeah. Thank you, Jackson. Glory?
Sure. It's really great to hear everybody talking about home because being a refugee, it's a lot of talking about places, and for me, it's quite different from all the speakers here because I was really a grown up when I left my country. I completed my high school, my secondary education in 2014 and 2015. I joined university programs. And there in 2015, when I was actually in my first year, toward the end of my first year in college or in the university, that's where the political situation turned to be very, very, very unwelcoming. So I had to leave my country to come to Kenya. And yeah, I came here in 2016 and it hasn't been really easy, but at least I got safety. And yeah, so here I am in Kenya. So I was very grown up by then.
Thank you. Now, Jess, do you want to tell us a little bit about the beginning of your journey? You're originally from Syria.
Yeah, sure. Actually, I was 10 years old when the Syrian war started. So I lived 2 years, like until I became 12 years old, under the bombing. Like after bombing our home for several times, we had to escape from the city that we lived in, and all people escaped at the same time. So I had to go to Lebanon in a very difficult journey. It was very difficult. Like we walked at nights, and we spent several days to arrive the Lebanon country. Then I stayed in on the Syrian Lebanese borders for 3 years, and I continued my education there, the primary education, and then I had no chance to continue my education in a higher education program because due to my refugee status, and actually it was somehow impossible until SNHU GEM came and I could join the program, and they accepted my certificate.
Thank you. I think one of the things that oftentimes people, it was a surprise to me, so I should say many of us don't realize fully, is how long one may stay as a displaced person. Rachel, I think the last time I checked, it was something like the average length of time for a refugee is 21 years, which means for many of our younger students, they've only ever known life as a displaced person. Um, Gloria, you were more recent, as you said, but others, I think, Julie, you said 16 years, right? So that is not unusual. And I think for many people think refugee, well, a year or two of this sort of transitional stage, and then you find a sort of what that all, and it doesn't. People stay in refugee status for a very long time. It's one of many misconceptions, I suspect. And I was curious who might want to jump in first with the question, what do you think people, what are some of the common misconceptions about displaced people, about refugees? The world watches this and people feel heartbroken and sad about it. And they probably operate with a lot of assumptions. What kind of things have you run into? Now, Jess, I see you using the hand up function, which makes my life so easy. So I'll let you go first.
Okay, thank you. So first, I think that when people see refugees on the TV, for example, or in the real life, they think that refugees are weak and they only need the humanitarian help. But in fact, they just need their rights, just to access their rights to excel in their life. But actually, people in general think that refugees only need shelter, camps to live in, and humanitarian aid, something related to food. And they normally they don't think about their future. How can these children learn at schools, and how can they learn a new language and engage in the new community that they came to?
I love what you said, just because I think, we think of food and security and housing. Of course, those are basic, but they are basic. They don't solve for the bigger problem of hope and aspiration and the future and what kind of life. And there are a number of studies that show that refugee communities actually add to their host communities. They bring talent and work and diligence and grit and lots of other things. Agnes, you want to jump in, and then we'll go to Glory.
Yeah, sure. So many people, when they see refugees, they just like see the refugee status. And this is something that really hurt me because like we are refugees, we have like a refugee status, but our mind, like we are not refugees in mind, you know, we are just refugees in status. And so many people didn't realize that. And like refugees can anything that any people can do, refugees can do it too, because like we have the same ability, you have the same capacity, but only something that refugees are lacking is like someone to give them the chance to prove like how capable they are.
Yeah, and I love, refugee is a status. It's not who you are as a person. It is a legal question. It is not a human question. Glory, you were next, and then I'll go to Jackson.
Yeah, so Agnes just said what I wanted to say. So I think based on what Alnor just said, the fact that people see refugees as people who always need help, that makes many people think that refugees are incapable or refugees are unable to do things. And as a result, in many places, in Kenya, for instance, the policies don't really allow refugees to work professionally. There is a lot of restrictions because people think that these are people who need help, so these are people who really can't do anything for themselves. These are people who can't work. These are people who can, and they just don't realize that some of these people, before they flee their home countries, they were in universities, they were in companies, they were working. So I see that's a very big misconception in terms of refugees issues. Something else is the link or the association between refugees and terrorism. I saw this when Syrians were going to Europe. People would say that we are getting terrorists in. In Kenya, people tend to think that refugees' presence in the country makes it easy for Al Shabaab or for similar groups to operate. And I think that it's not always the case. And refugees are a burden, as I said in one of the meetings I attended. Refugees are a burden to a community that don't set the right policies, the right regulations to help them strive, to help them grow. If we want to keep them as people who need help all the time, as people who need to be controlled in refugee camps, in prisons, or in whatever thing you can call it, if we keep that policy that way, definitely refugees are going to be that burden that need help all the time, and we're just not going to give them enough room to kind of express their talents, express their abilities, and do things. Yeah.
Thank you, Glory. Jackson?
Yes, I can say there are many stereotypes that people use to take refugees. I remember the time we were coming here in Rwanda, it wasn't easy. People were seeing us as strange people, as vulnerable people who don't have anything or who don't know anything, because they're looking at us as beggars, yet we are like other people. So my opinion on this, I would like to say that people around the world should take a refugee as a normal person, because he's not the one who chose to be a refugee, because as Agnes said, it's a status, because it can happen even to anyone. So refugee can be treated fairly, supported, because wherever he will be, he can contribute to the development of that country, as well as when he get chance to get back to his country, he can also keep providing support as well as the development of his country, because he has been supported, given all facilities that would help his life to move forward as other people. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Julie, I want to ask you, I remember visiting Cape Town, and I always want to sort of be careful to say that host countries are often themselves countries with deep struggles. And displaced people end up coming to places because of proximity. And those countries should be praised for receiving refugees. And on the other hand, life in those places can also be very difficult because those places are difficult. And there's a lot of suffering among South Africans, among poor South Africans. And our refugee population comes in, and it makes the situation very complex and not often easy for the refugees. Can you say a little bit about the challenges of being a refugee in a non-camp setting like Cape Town, like South Africa? And it's
Um,
important, I think a lot of people, this is something again I learned, which is that I think, Rachel, you can correct me, but something like 60% of the world's displaced people are not in refugee camps. They are dispersed through host communities or internally displaced. So they may be forced from their home, still in their home country, but that it's no different in some ways than, or it's different, it's still difficult. So, sorry, Julie, talk a little bit about being a refugee in South Africa today.
um, so for me, the refugee status really hit when I started applying for universities, when I started looking for employment after high school. That's when the status really hit me, when the South Africans look at you like, okay, you're here to steal our jobs, or you're here to take our places at the university. And being in South Africa for the past 16 years, some people think this is my home, right? But then when you go into university and they tell you, show me your South African ID, or they tell you this course is only for South Africans first, and then you start to question, okay, but I've been here for so long. Why am I not part of you guys? What have I done wrong? Am I not speaking like you guys? Am I not dressing like you guys? Don't I eat your food? These are the questions you ask because I I say that South Africa is my home just because I've been here so long. If I must go back to the Congo today, it would be very different, even though I'm a seed planted in the Congo. So it is a bit, it's very difficult. And the stories that we hear, we almost identified, just as Jackson said, as beggars. We're identified as people coming to steal, people coming to invade almost, and it's not the case. We are just trying to live with you guys. We're just trying to trying to find greener pastures because where we come from ain't that green for us.
Yeah, and it's important, I think, to always recognize that for many of the people that you describe in South Africa, their lives are desperate. And desperation often breeds fear and sometimes violence. And on the other hand, I remember some of our South African students talking about commuting to the Scalabrini Center where our partnership is, and commutes of an hour and a half, 2 hours, multiple trains or buses, but making sure never to speak so that people wouldn't hear their accent, so they wouldn't know that they were an outsider. And I want to, South Africa can sometimes be, many places can be, let me rephrase this, for women refugees, and I want to talk to the three women panelists now for a moment. Could you talk a little bit about the challenges of being, the additional challenge of being a woman and a displaced person? And I know among those challenges is always the threat of sexual violence, which has plagued our refugee communities, but there are other challenges as well. So whatever you're comfortable sharing, we'd love to sort of get your perspective. So Julie, I'll stay with you for a moment, then I'll go to Narjas and then Agnes.
On my side, I won't say I have faced any challenges being a female refugee, just because of the setting that I'm in and the community that I live in. I finished high school back in 2017, and the very big challenge that I faced was rejection from a lot of workplaces, a lot of universities, and that's where the GEM program came to be like the light in my tunnel and help me out of that. So I haven't faced, and I can say I'm still very young, so I haven't experienced a lot of things in the workplace, and I'm still in the education background, so I haven't experienced much.
I'm glad to hear that. No, just do you want to talk a little bit about the additional challenge of being a woman and a displaced person?
Sure. So when I lived in a camp on the Syrian-Lebanese borders, people there used to like experienced early marriage, and girls at the schools were leaving the schools because they were hopeless. They had no chance to continue their studies, and they didn't even reach the baccalaureate degree because they believed at that time that they will not be able to continue in higher education programs. So let's escape, let's leave the school, and let's get married. And unfortunately, most of them experienced the divorce, and this was having kids as well. So this was very, very difficult for people in this age, for women in this age. So for me, I could continue my studies, and fortunately, my family is a supportive family who don't like who didn't like me to experience an early marriage and then get in the life early. So they always supported me to continue my studies and to get into the higher education program, and also supported me to came to Turkey, even to come to Turkey, even if no one no one from the family was me, only with my friend. And this is actually difficult for me because it's not normal for all people in my community to travel alone. And also, when I lived in Lebanon, when someone like a man asked me, "Where are you from?" I say I'm from Syria, so he just see me as I'm a lower level person, and he would like just to start chatting in a respective way. So at that time, I felt that I have to show my strengths, and I have to say no. So I'm a Syrian woman. I'm a Syrian girl, and but this does I'm a refugee, but this doesn't give you the right to say something that that's not acceptable.
Yep. Good for you. Agnes?
Yeah, sure. So being a female refugee, so it has like a lot of negative impact, if you can say. Like taking an example to refugee, I mean in Kiziba refugee camp, so many girls there, like they are experiencing the early marriage, and also like most of, I can say like most of them, I'm not sure about the percentage, but most of them like they have like the babies, you know, and this like it can be very difficult to look for something that can help you to raise your baby and like combine with the education, combine with other home responsibilities. It's very difficult for them. And as you can see, like in the most of the refugee camp, girls are like, we have low percentage of girls who are attending schools because of all those like impact that we are facing. You can imagine like as a girl, as a teenager, we have the right to like to look smart, to have like different basic things. And when you are not going to have access to it, and when your parents are not going to provide all those the basic needs, it causes like some girls to be like the prostitute, you know, and do other work that can cause like to hurt your future, I mean to like to not think about their future. And this is really very bad. So whenever I'm thinking about like I'm a refugee, I'm a girl, and I know all like the type of consequences on all bad things that is happening to my fellow girls, it used to hurt me, even though I can't do anything to them because I can't provide things that they don't have. But like chatting with them, talking to them and advise them, thinking about the future, not like the current presence you are living. Today you are not having lotion, today you are not having something to wear, but something that you can do, it can harm your future and like not having any clear future. So human refugees are facing so many challenges.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Jackson, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about now perhaps a happier notion, which is, can you just say what it meant for you to discover the GEM program? I mean, you just tell us how did you come to know it, and then what did it mean to start your studies in GEM? And Gloria, I'll go to you with the same question in a moment. Jackson?
Yes, thank you for that question. I remember in 2010, it's the time I graduated my school in teaching. So at that time, I got good grade. That would have allowed me to pursue my teaching studies at university. But in that time, we were not having enough NGOs to support us to pursue the university studies. So I've been waiting, like I've been teaching for like 5 years. Then we were lucky enough in 2015. Uh, you, Paul, and Christina came in Kiziwa camp. I remember that time you introduced to us Kepler SNHU. That's the first time we have heard it about Kepler as well as SNHU. Then we started applying. Then we did exams. After all, we were admitted and we started learning through it. And I was lucky to be one of the first among the first graduates. That's what maybe I can share. That's the way I've heard about it. And I've been, though it was somehow challenging the first years, because I was combining my work as well as studies. Then I realized that it wasn't easy to combine both. Then I I left my job. Then I pursued my studies once I started working on BA. Yeah, that's what my experience with SNHU, as well as
Jackson,
Cape.
forgive me, I didn't remember that you were in the very first class of GEM students. That was an amazing group. We were just figuring it all out, and it was so complicated. So you were very patient with us as we learned how to deliver the program. Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much too. We appreciate your support as well as what you are keeping doing for the refugees and other marginalized people to pursue their tertiary education. Thank you so much for what you are doing.
No,
I
well, look,
appreciate.
it's honestly Christina and Nina and some of the early folks that were leading it did amazing work, and now handing off to Rachel, who continues that work. It was really it's the team that did it, but I still remember that visit. It's one of the most important days of my life, and it was very, very powerful. I describe it to people all the time. Gloria, do you want to talk a little bit about your discovery of the GEM program and what it meant for you to enroll in it?
Yeah, sure, Paul. Before I say anything, I think what Jackson just said goes, he just spoke for everybody else. Thank you very much for the good work. I would say before probably I talk about my personal experience, probably people need to understand how SNHU works in refugee camps or in these other contexts. So what happens is that SNHU, as you all know, it's a university in the United States in Southern New Hampshire, but they have a partnership with local organizations working in Kakuma refugee camp, in Zaleka camp, and in South Africa. So in South Africa, I think it's Calabrini, where Agnes is in Rwanda, it's Kepler. Here in Kakuma refugee camp, it was by the time I started, it was Jesuit Jesuit Worldwide Learning, but currently it's Jesuit Refugee Services. And where our address comes from and other places, they have different partners. So through these partners, these partnering organizations run GEMS programs on the ground, kind of to create kind of a local campus where a couple of GEMS students can come, or Southern New Hampshire University students can come and study together. So it happens that there was Jesuit Worldwide Learning in Kakuma Refugee Camp, and they were running the GEM program, the SNHU program, and a couple of other education programs in Kakuma. So what happens is, as soon as I arrived in Kakuma Refugee Camp in 2016, I was French speaking. I couldn't speak English, so I really wanted to continue my studies. As I stated at the beginning, I just came right from the university, so I really wanted to continue, and I went to a university here in Kenya, Moi University, and then I tried to get registered there. It failed. I couldn't be admitted because of language, because of my documents. Well, they needed them to be kind of examined and judged to be told whether my papers can be accepted in the education system in Kenya and all that. So it was really, really complicated. I had to come back to the camp knowing that I didn't really have any chance to continue with higher or tertiary education. So being in the camp, I met a person who I talked to who suggested that I go get a certificate course at Jesuit Worldwide Learning, JWL. So when I went there, I did a 6 month long certificate course, and there I got a chance to interact with Southern New Hampshire University students. So through these interactions, I really learned about things they're doing. I learned my English there, and I learned a couple of other things there. And then that inspired me to co-found the Vision to the Club organization, which I talked about at the beginning. And then I really got interested in joining because I really wanted to really learn something that would help this organization grow. So it was very tough to really join because GEM is currently the only implementing organization giving or providing tertiary education in Kakuma refugee camp, in the camp.
Yeah.
So that being said, GEM does not always have thousands of people coming in 1 year or 500 people coming in one cohort. So we were actually very lucky because we were the only cohort that received a lot of people by that time. So it was very competitive. We were, I think, 700 people applying, and less than 50 people would be admitted in the program. So it's really, really, really tough, and it shows how many people are really in need of tertiary education in camps.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was
Yeah, it's hard
lucky.
to get in. It's as hard to get into as Harvard, I think. So there you go. That's how accessible. You are the elite of the elite. I'm afraid, percentage wise. I wish we could serve more. Gloria, I really appreciate you mentioning our partners. I would be remiss. GEM only works because we have such great partners on the ground. And I think, one of the things that we learned very, very early on is we needed to do this work in partnership with entities who have been there, who understand the culture, who understand the challenges, who can provide the supports that we can't from thousands of miles away. And it's never enough to just think about the program, right? It's about everything else. And everything else can look quite different. It looks different in Kakuma than it does in Kigali, than it does in Cape Town. So I think, it's really important. I want to acknowledge our partners. Now, just can you talk a little bit about what does the future look like? I sometimes think that at the heart of it, GEM is in the business of hope. And I see you smiling, Agnes, when I say that, but it's part of what we are doing, right? Is we're helping people with new tools, new skills, and giving hope. And here you are, moving from 3 years on the border, right? And today you're in Istanbul. And what's next? What's your next chapter look like for you?
Okay, thank you for this question. Actually, if you asked me this question 5 years ago, I would have the same plan, but I will say that it's very difficult, and I'm not sure if I can achieve it because I lived in Lebanon and passed and through the refugee status, and that was a very big problem, and I had no chance to travel to continue my studies outside. But with SNHU's partners' help, I could do it. So currently I'm in Turkey, and I'll continue my studies. I have several plans, and I have the ability to achieve them. Actually, the best of them is to continue my studies, to have my master's degree, to have a PhD. Then, and like my even my the plans that I did before, when I joined SNHU, I could develop them and have new perspectives and new things toward the future. So currently I'm learning a third language, and I'm preparing to get into a new education program. So I have the potential also to apply for an international job with several organizations. Since I had the experience needed, I did many internships with SNHU GEM, and with their partners, and the University of New York was one of them, and I'm so proud of that. So I think I have all the materials and all the skills needed, while in terms of language, communication, cultural competency, and all the skill and the business skills needed to compete even in the educational community or the job community.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you have all the skills needed as well. I would agree with you. I think I'm looking forward to seeing what these next chapters look like. How about you, Jackson? What are you thinking about?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. I can say my future, starting from now, I was thinking how maybe I can achieve bigger things. So far, I've achieved good things, even great things. So, what I'm looking forward to pursue my studies in masters. Recently, I've applied to a scholarship and at the University of Dundee. I have been admitted, but I didn't get the chance to get that scholarship. But that was my goal, or even my wish, to pursue my further education, so that maybe I can keep providing further support from what I'm doing currently. So I wish to do more from what I'm currently doing, because I'm supporting the staff with a little bit of technical issue. So I just want to know more and maybe provide bigger support with either the SNHU as well as other places where I can be. Thank you.
Sylvie?
This question excites me. The future is much brighter now. After I finished high school, my dreams were always there. I never gave up on any of my dreams. It just became so difficult to achieve any because of the system that I live in. But being part of this family, being part of this program has just lifted me and pushed me to even go further. The future for me right now, completing my BA this year. I'm straight on going to my master's degree in public health. And I wish one day to return back home to the Congo and help out. I've learned I went through what I needed to go through so that someone doesn't have to go through what I went through. That's why I see it as I see myself as an advocate. I see myself as the refugee girl who made herself become herself just because of the help of people like Jim and the partners around the world. I want to go back, even here in South Africa, I want to start local, start where I was flourishing in South Africa and help out here, help out back home, help out in Africa. There's someone that needs someone's help, and I want to be that help. I believe that we get education so that we can educate. So everything that I'm learning, so that I can also teach one person or another, and encourage one person that it's possible. Being a refugee, being a female, being young, you can be educated and you can be successful. That's what I want.
I just love that last comment you made, because I think in some ways it's not only the very practical things you will do in your career, but in some ways, even what you have done is a very powerful symbol of hope to others who may think that their options are not wrong in many cases, but you hold out hope, right? You are hope in many ways. And I just love the way you've sort of captured that. Glory, what do your next chapters look like?
Well, they've already said it. Largest and Angelica just beautifully said it. I think the GEM program really leveled the ground. It actually put everyone at the same level, then compete in the market. And so with that, I learned from all the GEM students who are really doing amazing work in the camp and elsewhere. So I really hope that in the coming few years, I'll be able to either return to Congo or work in Kenya or go anywhere in the world and really bring the smile to the face of many people, especially as a healthcare manager. I really like working in the healthcare industry to really ensure that people get good health and health of good quality, health services of good quality, and I really wish to do that.
Agnes, next chapters?
Yeah, so I have so many goals, but just going to talk about the top 3 of them. First, I want to do the PMP exam and be the certified PMP, project manager, so that I can perform well my job. The second one, I want to do my master's in business administration, specifically in project management, since I'm in love with project management things. And thirdly, I want to keep working in the organization that supports refugees so that I can make an impact to refugees as Jem made an impact to my life. That was the top 3 ones that I have.
I love all 3 of those. Those are wonderful. Rachel, I want to give you a minute to step in and talk a little bit about the program and also sort of, what continues to be the challenges in doing this work.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Before I start talking about challenges, I just want to take an opportunity to thank all of the panelists today. So Glory, Julvi, Narges, Jackson, and Agnes, thank you so much for sharing your stories and making this a really incredible event. As Paul mentioned, this week I'm lucky enough to be in Cape Town, and we're celebrating graduation with our students and our partner Scalabrini. I'm so impressed by our students' accomplishments, everything you all have shared today, and all of the students who I am meeting and speaking with along the way. Not only in your persistence in achieving your own educational goals, but also our students' commitment to making a bigger picture difference, either inspiring fellow students or, with the refugee protection space shrinking. And I think, Paul, to your point, that's one of the biggest challenges. The refugee space is shrinking, the refugee protection space is shrinking in South Africa, but it is also shrinking in a lot of other parts of the world. And it is really exciting to see GEM students and GEM graduates speaking up to direct and to redirect the narrative around what it means to be a refugee. As the students have shared, I think that is one of the biggest challenges continuing with this work. Just the barriers that our students face accessing education, accessing basic rights, and just really, it's been really impressive to see how our students are, continuing to just join that conversation.
Yeah, Rachel, can you say just a word more? Because I think maybe our audience, if you're not familiar, going into a host country, depending on the country, can be quite a variety of what's possible and what's not possible. So I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that Rwanda, for example, has freedom of movement, which is a very big deal, that a refugee could actually travel. But if you're Glory and you're in Kakuma, it can be much harder to get the right to go, for example, to Nairobi, even if there is a job there and somebody wants to hire you tomorrow. And I believe, Najaf, in Lebanon, employment is relegated to very limited jobs, and they tend to be very, very low-level jobs in a country that has a surprisingly high cost of living. Lebanon's very expensive, and I think people don't necessarily realize that. Rachel, can you say a little bit more? I mean, those are just the examples I know.
Sure, yeah, and like you were saying, in different countries, refugees have different rights. So the right to move and the right to work are the ones that we see impacted most greatly. So, for example, some of our students, like Glory, don't have the right to move or the right to work. So if you're in a refugee camp, there is it's very unlikely that you will be able to gain the M-class work permit that's required to work in Kenya, and then be able to even pursue a job if you get one. And like you were saying, in Rwanda, for example, refugees do have the right to work and the right to move. There are a lot of gray areas too, which I think are popping up, and we're all navigating together. Things like working online, for example, right? That's a pretty gray area. If you don't have the right to work, do you still have the right to work online? So thinking through things like that. Also, in the majority of countries where our students are, they don't have rights to things like healthcare sometimes. Right. Or if their own children, their students don't necessarily have the right to go to school or to get healthcare themselves, or to get an apartment. So even if they're not living in a refugee camp, the opportunity to just get a place to live can be a really big challenge.
Yeah. So, I mean, one might, they're formidable challenges, and they look very different from context to context to context, I think is the point. And the problem is getting worse, not better. The numbers continue to climb, sadly. So we really have a lot of work to do. So I'm going to give our panelists, and then I'll thank you afterwards. But a kind of last word I'll go around to say, obviously, if we could all wave the wand, we would have no displaced people, and the world would be much less strife-ridden than it is today. But to the extent that we still today have 80 million refugees distributed around the globe, what do you want our listeners to take away as the most important thing today? What do you want them to hold on to as they think about this? And this could be, there's practical things. There are lots of organizations that would happily take donations and who are doing the work as those partners are right in the front lines. But what is the most important thing our audience should know at the end of this conversation? And I'll start with you, Narjas, and then sort of make my way around.
Okay, as I think as there are several, like maybe hundreds of organizations that are interested in refugees, I always recommend to connect all of these organizations with each other to innovate or to come up with a program that serve those refugees and like that serves them completely. For example, they provide them the higher education, then another organization provide the same student with the skills needed for like for example to apply for a job, then another organization provide them with other support with their applications, for example. So I think this is important for all of them, for all of these organizations to communicate with each other, and also to provide opportunities for those who are not on the spot. Like for example, we have joined the program, but we are, for example, hundreds, but there are a lot of other people who are away, who are in camps, who cannot reach to the city. For example, I when I lived in the on the Syrian Lebanese borders, was a camp for refugees, but I wouldn't have the chance to study at JAM if I didn't move to the country,
Right.
to the city, to Tripoli, to apply for that program. So it's so important to reach to those people in far areas and to highlight their needs.
I love that. So we need more. We need more gems. We need more extension of our programs, and we need better coordination. That is, we have lots and lots of very well-intended organizations, but we have so many, and again, it's not sometimes coordinated nearly as well as it might be. Agnes, do you want to go next? What's the one takeaway you want people to have here as we come to a close?
Yeah, sure. So the one take that I want everyone here to have is like education is the key. So as a refugee, if you're educated, like you have everything. So please, if like you're aware of some people who can help refugees, or if you are able to do it, please think on how you can support the education of refugees, and do something. I know you can do like something for one person today, but it can change like the life of so please think about the education and try to support refugees as you can. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Agnes. Gloria, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. I think what people need to do, people need to listen and learn. We need to listen what refugees are saying, what are they experiencing, and we need to learn from them. And if we do that keenly, we are going to realize that the main problem has been policies. We need really to kind of create policies and rules that serve people, policies and rules that really help a community. And this starts from the government, from all constituencies, including organizations, institutions, universities, everyone serving refugees. We really need to kind of make good rules, good regulations that really help people.
Thank you. Jackson?
Yes, most of I can say that Agnes as well as Glory, what they said, or the same thought as I was having. So education can be the main thing that can support refugees around the world, because where once the refugee is educated, it's going to improve his life as well as his family as well as the whole community. Beside that, also refugees should be supported in different ways in all struggles that they face, having good medical services as well as other support that they need in their daily life, so that they can have good life, as well as maybe having set some goals that will be helping them to move forward. Maybe, for instance, here in Rwanda, they are supporting refugees to be self-sustainable. So I think helping the refugees to move forward from one step to another step, that would be great, rather than maybe taking a refugee as a vulnerable person who cannot do anything. So he should be supported, and then given our different opportunities that would help them to move forward from one step to another one. So I think that, as well as the host countries should also support the refugees with giving them different rights, such as movement, workers.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah, that will be very helpful, because whenever you are educated and you do not apply what you've learned, you tend to forget everything that you've learned. That's the consequence of if you are given that opportunity and you are not given that right, it's going to end up in mess. So I
Yeah.
think that we should be supported in all way. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackson. Thank you so much. Julie, you get the last word on this question, and then I'll do a little wrap up.
Okay, sure. I don't want to repeat what everyone said, and everyone said just what I wanted to say. But I would say that being a refugee isn't our identity. It isn't in our blood. It isn't in our genes. We didn't wake up one morning and say, I want to become a refugee. It's a status, and that status can be changed. And I guess opening the doors, giving us the rights that we need to be given, the right to move, the right to work, and first of almost the right to education. The great Nelson Mandela said that a farmer's child with education can become the president. So we're sitting here as refugees today, but if we are given the rights that we deserve, we too can become people in whatever nation we find ourselves. So to organizations, to the world, to any person in power, help one person. And I believe if you help that one person will help another. And the cycle goes on and will create just a wonderful world for everyone to live in. Thank you.
I can't imagine a better note on which to end. So thank you so much, Julie. That is, I think, the most important message. We often say that talent is universal, but opportunity is not. And that is no more true than in the world of displaced folks, people. And you spending an hour with U5 is a vivid reminder of just how much talent is out there, and unleashed, you will change the world. So from my bottom of your heart and on behalf of the whole SNHU community, I want to thank you for spending time with us. You've just been wonderful. We will be cheering you on and finding every way we can to support you in your dreams and in your journey. So thank you. And thank you, Rachel. Thank you for your leadership in this work. And for everyone on the GEM team, we often say that education has a very, dramatic impact and sometimes even changes and saves lives. And I think GEM is probably the best expression of that. Thank you all for joining us. It's been a wonderful opportunity to spend time on this most important of days. While we set aside a day globally to say it's World Refugee Day, the reality is that for many, many refugees, every day is Refugee Day. And now it's a question about how do we help them sort of move into a place that isn't about their legal status, as Julie reminded us, but as full, flourishing, nurtured human beings. So thank you all. Be well, and look forward to hearing more about the next chapters and how we can help you. Thank you.
Thank you.
People are stepping off. Thank you all. There's still lots and lots of people as people are jumping off. You can see, I hope in the chat that everyone is thanking you, praising you, singing your praises. People talking about your amazing stories. I again want to thank you for spending time with me this morning. I'm just gonna let you take a few minutes to look at the chat. Did you see this comment about how tough learning Turkish is? From one of our Turkish listeners. If you can master Turkish, you'll have no problem mastering whatever next degree program you're in.
There are some commonalities between the Arabic and the Turkish, so somehow trying to adapt. But actually, I'm around to finish the preparation year, so I can speak very good.
Oh, very good. I'm not surprised. And where in Syria are you from originally?
Sorry?
Where in Syria? Where were you from originally in Syria?
Homs.
Homs, yeah. I visited. I was in Syria before the war, so
When?
yeah. And it was a beautiful, beautiful country. It's a tragedy that's happened.
When did you visit it?
When did I visit?
When did you visit it?
Oh God, I have to go back now. What year was that? It was just before the war began. So when did the Civil War begin? When did the protests begin? The serious protest? 2015?
No, I think it's 2010.
Yeah.
The war started in 2011.
Oh, so it was even earlier. Pandemic. The pandemic has completely scrambled my sense of time. I live in pandemic time now, as we all do. Great. Well, thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to scoot to my next meeting, but this was the highlight of my, highlight of my day is the highlight of my week to spend time with you. Take care. Be well. Bye-bye.